My name is Mary Roche. I am 83 years old and I live in Outer Cove all my life. My mom was a great person. She was the boss. And my father was a great person. He loved to sing and dance, worked hard. They both worked hard. He fished all his lifetime and he was away for 7 years before I was born. Up in Boston, and he fished up there with his brothers and came home, and he was drowned helping out a Portuguese boat. He was drowned in Outer Cove in 1950. Drowned him and two more men. Two got saved, two brothers, and him and another man, Tom Doran, got drowned. My mother was left then with 5 kids to look after. Joseph was away, and the only help she got when they sent her a bit of money. And she did laundry for people in the city. Not much money in that, but she did it anyway, and that's how she kept the crowd together. Oh yeah, we were always a close family, I must say, just like my own crowd are today. There was never any bad feelings between any of us. My brother Jack, he was the oldest, he was in the Navy, and he'd always send pictures and everything, and Joseph was away, but he came home and then he worked at the railway station. Jimmy was away and then he came back after a couple of years and got married, and he worked at St. John's City Council. Paddy was a plumber, he worked at St. Clair's. And Teresa worked in the bank, and she became a bank manager after with the Toronto Dominion up in Toronto. And he worked at different places, cooking and everything. And Frank worked with the city, and he ended up going away. He's still up in Ontario, Newmarket, Ontario. And Teresa's in Alliston, Ontario. We had big gardens then of potatoes and turnip and cabbage. And we had the weed in the garden, and when your weeding was done, 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the day, then you could go swimming down to the beach or out to the river. But that had to be done before you went. And if you didn't do it, believe you me, you weren't getting to go anywhere. You go pick berries in the summer someplace, and that'd be my mother would boil the kettle, and she'd bring some kind of cake or something, and we'd have a cup of tea and that. But going on vacations then, no. Nobody did. They couldn't afford it because everybody was making small money. Never went on vacations until we got our own lives. Other than that, there wasn't much, only to go swimming and visit the beach. No, they were great days, I'm telling you. Those days will never come again. I was 16 when I went to work down the Bowrings. Down in Outer Cove, they had a store down on Water Street. They were well-to-do. And I babysat 2 kids down there for probably a year. And I'd go out in the week, and my father, I'd get a drive out to town on Sunday with their fella they had to drive you around. He'd drive us out to town on Sunday, and my father would come and pick me up. Get a drive home, and he'd drive me out on Monday morning, and there was a man to be there to pick us up. Then I went waitress at Ballyhaley. I was there for 2 summers. Well, you'd only be 6 months at Ballyhaley, working the summer. There was no unemployment insurance or anything then times. And then I'd work at the snack bar in the winter. I worked until I was 20. I was waitress up there. You walk home from Harvey Road, and you'd stay home for the night, and you go back, walk out the next morning again. So I did lots of walking in my days, believe you me. But them times you didn't mind walking because people didn't have cars. There was $25 a week. That was big money then. There was no big proposals then. You'd get an engagement ring, and that'd be it. You could say everything to him. He'd take all the slurs I'd say to him and everything. Sometimes I'd be going to kill him. But he still lived to end up getting a brain tumor. He'd work mostly 6 months of the year. Well, he'd go to the ice in the winter time. He'd be gone out to the ice fields, and he worked for 24 years or something with the Department of Highways. He'd be on in the summer, he'd be off in the winter, and then it was 23 years that he worked permanent with him, the year round, you know. He used to help Billy Hickey on the snow plough, and they wouldn't let, but now a fella goes by himself, and then you'd be out fixing chains for to put on the trucks and that, and there was lots of hard work to it, and money was small, but everything was cheaper. When I was getting $36 every 2 weeks, I could go leave the Janeway in the evening, Papa would pick me up, go over to the Minion, and you wouldn't be able to carry out what you get for $36. And we always had a garden, we never had to buy any vegetables, and we always had fish. And I didn't have a deep freeze for years till we got electricity, but that was grand because you'd have a box up in the barn and we'd have fish frozen and to be all covered up in plastic, and it was better than the deep freeze of a frosty night. And we had a cellar over there that we used to keep the vegetables in, turnip, potatoes and cabbage and everything. It only the last few years we had carrots. We had potatoes from September right up until May of the next year. That was groceries you didn't have to buy, and we'd buy a sack of flour, and I always made my own bread and everything. But everything was hard work them times, everything. Daddy would go to the ice fields in the winter, and he'd be gone for maybe 6 weeks, and we never had a TV, so I rented out a TV one year. He was gone and I was working, and I said to myself, God, I'll have to do something to keep their sanity. And I rented out a TV down to Ernest $20 a month. I went down one day, he was a real nice man, and I said to him, he said, Mrs. Roche, if you want to buy this, you can pay $20 a month to rent it, to keep it. And that's what I did. We had it for 4 or 5 years. And that's how we got our first TV. I rented it and then I bought it.
Do you remember how you felt when you found out you were pregnant for the first time?
Yes, I woke up sick every morning. No trouble at all. For about 3 months, you get up in the morning, as soon as you get to the kitchen, that'd be it, sick. And the whole 10 of them. That's the way I was. But that was it. I never had another thing. I never had a pain or an ache or nothing. Quickest one was born Steve. We left Sunday morning. Rich got along to Joseph's car and my mother came out with me. And we were going out the road and we picked up Jim Steck. He was going for a bootleg bottle. I said, now Jim, I'm not much in the mood for you this morning. I want to drive here. I said, Rich, you're dropping him at the Newfoundland Hotel and that's it. From there he can go where he likes. 5 o'clock in the morning we got to St. Clair's. Walked up the front steps, the door locked. Had to come down the steps again, had to walk around. I remember every pain, I used to have to catch the pole going up St. Clair Avenue.
Yeah.
I remember Sister Aidan, I said if she didn't go to hell, nobody did. She was at the front door saying the door's locked. When we went to the back door, she was there again. We have to check your suitcase. And I was carrying, Rich went to park the car and I just walked in and I had said, here, sister, take it. She took the suitcase and on the elevator she opened it up to see what was in it. Oh, she was an antichrist, that one. I was no time with Martin, I was in and out. Didn't have time to take my shoes off when Martin was born. Diana was out a while too. And then Diane turned out to be the crookedest, oh God. She bawled for 3 years. Steve was a long time, Martin was quick, Diane was long too because she was always a long time out. And all the rest of them were no trouble. The thing, a man wasn't allowed to stay with you then. I never had the whole 10 kids, I had to have them on my own.
Did they give you pain medication or put you out when you were having your babies? Or
They'd give you chloroform, put it across your nose and breathe and you'd be out, but you still know what was going on and everything, you know. But I had them all in the hospital. My mother had all hers home. She had Patty and Teresa Nanny and my 2 sisters that died with diphtheria. Them were the only ones that were born in the hospital. Jack, Joseph, Jimmy and me were born home. Joe was 4 when I went back to work at the Janeway. And I went there first for 5 years. I walked back and forth in the evening. I worked night shift. And I got $33.50 every 2 weeks. I worked for 5 years and I left. I couldn't handle the boss. He was unmerciful. And I left, and then I went to work with Dr. Hobika for 4 years, and I reared his 4 kids. The fella that I left for 5 years came along. He said, Mary, I want you to come back. I said, not under your rule, I'm not going back. He said, the union is there now. I said, yeah, you don't put any heat in the union. He said, well, I have to. I waited, and he said, you're crazy, you go back, you make half decent money. Every 2 weeks now, $36.50. And I walked back and forth. I'd leave in the evening when they get home from school. I'd have supper ready and everything. And Diane and Janet did the dishes. Patsy did very little. Patsy liked to go too much. We always had a puppy and a cat. Everybody did them times, but the attention wasn't given to them that's given to animals today. I mean, half the time they'd never be in the house, they'd sleep out in the barn during the night time, lie down the hay, and they were happier there than they were in the house. There was no disposable diapers then. I had none of them for anything. Because I mean, you're talking about 48 years ago, Joe was a baby. Nobody had disposable diapers then. You buy flannelette. My mother had a sewing machine. She was a great hand to sew. And she'd make the flannelette diapers on the machine, and you had to wash them. You had a white bucket and you throw it in when they got messed and clean it out and then put them in the wash tub. You had to make sure you had no soap on them because the child would get sore then. Oh my God, I didn't have a washer for I don't know how long. I didn't have electricity for years. Had an Aladdin lamp sitting out on the wall in the kitchen. There was a great light and everything, and then you'd have a lamp in the bedroom. You wouldn't leave it on all night, but you'd have it for them to go to bed in that. Candles, no, I was always afraid of candles. I still am to this day. He always reminds me of a funeral when I got the electricity in. I can't remember what year, but I do remember Mr. Ritchie's stack down. He got it first, and then they come out along this way with it, and then Rich's father and mother got it, and then we had it. No, my God, it was great. But you had to wait to get the electricity in order to get the plumbing. We got the bathroom in a few years after Paddy put that in first. Oh my God, they were all waiting. They couldn't wait to go and turn on the tap. When I was working at the Janeway 34 years ago when we got the furnace, myself and Nance got it at the same time from Gulf Oil. There was a fella going around one day and I called Nance. Nance said, Mary, was he up? I said, yeah. And she said, no, I'm not asking Rich, Nance. I'm just getting the furnace. That's it. Get a chance, you got 10 years to pay for it. Probably $20 a month or something. Well, we had an oil stove first in the kitchen, an oil range. We had a hot water jacket in the middle of it. It was great to wash the dishes. You wouldn't have to be putting a boiler of water on to boil it, you know. John Nugent would come, they'd bring the barrel up there by past Roberts and leave it there, and John Nugent to fill it. $10 to fill it. Maybe twice a month, and then Rich and a couple of them would go up and they'd pull it down on the dog slide and hook it up. We got rid of Gulf. They were terrible. They wouldn't come. You'd be froze to death waiting for them to come. They were the worst people ever. We went with Irving Oil, and we're with them a long time now, Irving Oil. You know, the snowplow never came down here, and everybody was the same. If you lived off the road, it was hard. If you lived down the road, it was fine. Walter Walsh, he had a tractor then. You get him to plow to come down in the winter. I worked on nights for 3 years, and then there was a job came up days. I went on days then, and that was wonderful. Once a month we'd work 7 days in a row, and then we get 3 days off. Friday, Saturday and Sunday, once a month, and that was great. But other than that, I loved working weekends because we'd all get together. There were 7 or 8 of us working, and we'd make up a potluck and bring it out, and we'd go in the linen room, in the laundry room at lunchtime. And everybody'd have it, and they had a microwave there, and we'd heat it up, and we'd have a grand time. When I went back, I worked for 23 years. I retired 1995 to the 31st of March. I cried the day I retired. They gave me a party and everything, and they gave me that picture over there, the hospital did. That TV is in the room. They didn't come down for a couple of days after. All the girls chipped in and bought me that TV. And Dan said, come on, let's come up to Walmart. That was Saturday as I retired on Friday. And I said, yeah, okay. So we went up to Walmart, and when I came back, there's 2 cars in the yard. I said, who the hell is there now? But they came down with the TV, 6 of them to me. I heard the laughing in the room. I said, Daddy, who's there? He said, I don't know who they are, but he did. And they had the TV for me. It was still going strong for 18 years, that TV. And I got lots of usage, I'll tell you. I have them down every summer, for 6 of them. I have them down every summer for a lunch. There was 10 of them here last year one day. And I'll do it again in August now. They always keeps in contact with some of them. Every day I worked at the Janeway, I loved it. I'd met so many people. I still hear from a couple of them that are living out around the bay, and they're up in their 70s and that. And a couple of times a year they'll come into town and they'll always call me, because I know their kids so well. They had cancer, and some of them died, and some of them didn't. Yeah, and they're married now, some are grown up and have kids of their own. But they were great years.